Another day in the studios of DBS Radio, the Office of Disaster Management. As usual, every Tuesday from 9:30 to 10:30, we are here on the DBS Radio giving you vital information. And every week, we have a different guest with us. My name is Carlisle JnoBaptiste. I'm the Communications Officer at the Office of Disaster Management. And with me in the studios is another important person. I'll say good morning to him and let him introduce himself to you. Good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning, Carlisle, and pleasant morning to all listeners of DBS Radio who are looking at us via social media, who are listening via radio this morning. Thank you very much for having me this morning on Disaster and You. My name is Wayne Layton. I'm the Acting Chief Fire Officer for the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Services Division.
A very important person. You see, every week we bring you important individuals, the fire officials. So the Office of Disaster Management is the agency or government division responsible for coordinating disaster management activities on island. This is achieved by readiness, response, and national plan implementation, logistic support, example, the Ministry of Health during COVID, solid waste, ongoing garbage disposal, liaising with supporting agencies, national, regional, and international, conducting simulation exercises, providing public information and education. The Office of Disaster Management is the secretariat to the National Emergency Planning Organization, NEPO, a broad-based disaster management body under the direction of the Prime Minister, whose responsibility is to ensure that the country is in a state of readiness, preparedness at all times. Mr. Litter, the fire officials play a pivotal role whenever a disaster strikes or is about to strike. Tell us, what are the things that your office would normally be responsible for doing? And as I mentioned earlier on, I mentioned about health during COVID, etc.
Yes, well, before I even start, I was listening to the theme song for this program.
Yes.
Yes, and who is the artist? The artist for this program.
Shelley.
Oh, Shelley.
Yes.
And one line in that promotional song, it hit me. Your lifestyle. Disaster has to do a lot with our lifestyle, how we look at things. And recently we heard the Senior Met Office asking persons to listen to the weather report and some of the lifestyle activities that we normally engage in, that we have to stop it, like wandering around during disasters. Yes, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, wandering around during disasters put a strain on the fire service as one of the response agencies as it relates to disasters in Dominica. Because sometimes what you find happening now is that during disasters, fire officers have to be rescuing persons. And I'm talking about hydromet systems, hurricanes. Rather than sit and wait to go to do recovery after, we find ourselves in the middle of a hurricane, walking around, trying to rescue persons. And a lot of them, it's not because the persons are trapped at their home, but because they're on the streets.
The inquisitive.
Yes. So, one of the functions of the fire and ambulance services is that of rescue. And we play a major role in rescuing of civilians, either move them from areas that are considered high risk to areas which pose no threat, or after the storm, we rescue persons to help make their life better. Fire service is an organization, and we're part of the National Emergency System, NEPO. We are part of the fire service as an entity, is a subcommittee of NEPO. But we are also part of other subcommittees, and subcommittees like health, transportation, food and beverages. So basically fire service is like in everything. Before, during, and after disaster, fire service play a major role in the welfare of Dominicans. And before disasters, we are doing what we are doing today.
Now, even before the disaster, would you have officials at your stations or at various stations ready in case they would be needed?
Oh, well, that I would consider that part to be during disasters. But before disasters, even when there is no hydromet system approaching us, there is no volcanic eruption, there is no earthquake, fire service involves with talking to Dominicans, helping minimize the risk. Education with the ODM, we work with the ODM very closely. So we are involved in a lot of those programs. Train people in first aid, fire response, emergency response. We train persons. So these are things that we do even before any disaster happens. So we are in the preparation mode. Now, like you just asked, well, yes, that would be during a disaster. And yes, we call staff who are on vacation, they would have to return. So once the watch is given, we notify persons. Fire officers who are off duty are to report at the nearest fire station. So if I'm in Tibo, my nearest fire station would be Portsmouth. So report there so that the officer in charge of that station can now make his assemblance of people. And what we do, we separate into the different teams. So different teams do different functions at different times. So once all the stuff comes in, we are able to do that.
I want to ask that question and just going back a bit because you mentioned something as it relates to people being quote unquote inquisitive. And this is also putting a strain on your department. Why would people want to leave the safety of their homes and sometimes go and see a raging sea, a ravine that is coming down, and when they find themselves there, or a raging river, and sometimes they go to the bank of those rivers or those things, and there's a collapse. And I remember clearly, what is his name? The Fube brothers,
Yes.
who something like that happened to them, and up till today, they went missing. So why would people want to do that and play so inquisitive?
Well, going back to this same, the guys who got lost, the Fube brothers, as you claim, I understood also they were trying to assist some persons. So that is good sometimes. So they try to assist somebody and then they got caught up. That would be good. But generally speaking, like the song said, the lifestyle. Everybody's about their telephone. No telephone, people stay home. They got their telephone, they go out. Any disasters, and we are not just speaking of a hurricane, a motor vehicle crash incident, a flood, anything that happens, persons want to be there to witness for themselves. It's not that they're doubting Thomas, it's that they don't believe it is happening. But they want the experience of thrill. And this is the lifestyle that they live now. The experience of thrill. Being on the bayfront and the waves are splashing in and they actually have to run from it. They get excitement in that. I don't.
Because I'm going to ask, what excitement is there?
Well, this is something that persons would have to answer for their own. What is the excitement? And in many cases, we find, for example, at the bayfront, the police have to be moving persons. If persons stay away from the bayfront during that time, the police does not have to move them. If persons stay away from the bayfront, the water will never touch anybody. And within the fire and ambulance services, when you become a fire officer, you are taught awareness, and there's one small phrase that you learn: safety comes first. And even fire officers executing their duty, there's always a safety officer to ensure that safety comes first. Because even the fire officer himself can get compromised if he does not do things in a safe manner.
How difficult would it be for you, say, when a storm is approaching and your department would probably receive a call, an ambulance call? How difficult would that be for you?
From experience, it is very difficult. Very difficult. And if we, for example, I'm shivering as I'm speaking about Maria again, because at the time I was not at the position that I am. I was operational staff. And we had to be out there before the telephone system went down, we were getting calls. Persons who were experiencing difficult conditions, right? And then we had to leave the station to go to get them in the midst of the storm. At some points, police officers would come to the station and report that they saw some persons were trapped in some areas, some who were moving and they are caught in an area. And then we had to literally walk, brace ourselves against the strong winds and go. Trucks could not go at the time, and we depend on our truck for all our movements, but trucks could not go, and we had to go. We do not leave people behind as much as possible, so when the call comes, we respond. But in some cases, I could remember off my head, there was one particular incident during Maria, while it's at Portsmouth, and Carlisle, we just could not go.
Wow.
We left, and we could not reach the people. And what we had to do is just pray that they survive. But before, and that the telephone system was still up. So we gave the person advice on what to do and monitor the wind direction and go on the upwind. So which would be on the next side of the building because the roof had already gone and the building was collapsing, and we had to give them some instructions to protect themselves. At the end of the day, it was God blessings that the next day, that's one of the areas that we moved. As soon as the winds ceased down, we walked and we found that family. They were encroached in an area and some wood and everything fell over them, but they were safe, so we got them out. Wow. But you see, those type of things we respond to. The ambulance will not be able to move at the time of a hurricane. So we walk. And that's just reality of the situation.
And you have always been involved in a lot of search and rescue. Someone probably would go to the boiling lake or somewhere or go hiking. All those situations there. Search and rescue is a major part or a major component of the work that you are involved in.
Oh, yes, it is. And so on the island of Dominica, the fire service is responsible for rescues. So that's part of our duties. We do it. We train ourselves in doing it. And we have not just deep forest rescue, but we have urban search and rescue, which would be that of within the urban capacity. We also have collapse building search and rescue, which we also train in. So in case there's a collapse structure, we have to try to find persons who are alive in that structure. So yes, we are deeply involved in search and rescue. Presently we are moving forward. So we have a semblance of what we call a search and rescue team, and we're looking to organize that even better, have them training more often as a team so they can coordinate things very well. And I am not the search and rescue expert, yes, but within the organization we have trained, and when I say trained, I'm talking about trained persons. And I was happy to attend one of the trainings. And when we talk about, recently I talked at a meeting about rope bridge construction. And persons are like, I cannot explain it fully, but it's using ropes to make bridge for crossing. And the guys are trained at that. So when we do training, we do things like mapping, GIS, search for persons, missing persons. We do those type of training. Communication during search and rescue. We do that. Signals. We do that. So the guys could literally go out to the forest like they do, slip. Get the experience of slipping in the forest while searching. So these are some of the things that they train in. And the most exciting part of it is rappelling down cliffs. And we know Dominica have cliffs. So they use ropes to rappel and come back up or extract themselves from the bottom of the cliff. They do that. Like I said, I'm not trained in that, but I will help them get the resources so we can make this team a more phenomenal team. And as a matter of fact, Carlisle, I would say I could see that on this media, the St. Lucia Fire Service and Dominica Fire Service, we have this very good cooperation.
Because I was going to ask you if you liaise with other regional entities.
Yes, we do. But I'm using St. Lucia because St. Lucia has a component of the duties that we are behind, and that is that of EMS. So they do training. They were here assisting us with our training also in EMS, that is ambulance operations. And we have a higher level of search and rescue. So they are tapping into our resources also, and we are looking at ways in which we could help them develop their search and rescue also. So I would say it's good for the fire service that we are moving in that direction. We are trying to do it better than we are doing it, and I know we are doing it well, but we are trying to do it better, and this is one of the areas of focus that we have into develop that unit within the fire service.
I also know that you work in close collaboration with the Office of Disaster Management, because that too is very important to your department.
Oh yes, well, we consider the Office of Disaster Management as a partner, so we work with the ODM as partners. So they are involved in a lot of work that the fire service do. The fire service is involved in a lot of work that ODM does. When ODM has things to do, fire officers are the ones who help them do the trainings. So we work very well, the Office of Disaster Management, in a tightly knitted cooperation. I cannot even find more words to describe it. This is how tight it is. So you talk about fire service, you talk about the ODM. That's how we work.
You are listening to Disaster and you on the DBS Radio. My guest is Acting Chief Fire Officer, Mr. Later. That's Wayne Later. And importantly, the citizenry has an obligation of doing everything necessary to prevent emergencies and or disasters that lie within their power of control. The Office of Disaster Management, in collaboration with agencies, and Mr. Later mentioned that departments and divisions lead and or support disaster risk management programming to prevent loss of life and reduce damage to property given emergency disaster situations. The strategy for combating these adverse situations is to continuously educate and inform the general public, as we are doing now, and emergency service agencies about disaster management issues, and to adequately equip and regularly exercise the NIPO in the work that NIPO is doing. So again, like I said, we are working in close collaboration with both agencies, and also so we can do our work. Just recently, I was in Granby, and there was a walkthrough with the new fire department. Government is constructing a new fire department, and my understanding also is that you've also received, or you are in the process of receiving, some ambulances and jaws of life equipment. Give us a little information on that, please, sir.
Well, the Granby Fire Station, it is something that has been in the making for quite a while, and finally it went on stream, construction started, and now we are nearing completion. If I would make this point, I would say this way. This Granby Fire Station will be the third purposely built fire station in Dominica.
Why would you say that?
We have 8 districts. Roseau headquarters was not purposely built as a fire station. Actually, if we go back in history tells us that was even may have been used as a prison. I would have to check Dr. Honeychurch on that. But that building existed way back then. And what happened, there was renovations done to it to accommodate 8 persons, 8 staff. So 8 fire officers. When we started, back then we had the fire brigade, as it was called. So it was not purposely built as a fire station. The only two purposely built fire stations that we've had in Dominica was that at the Douglas Charles Airport, that massive building, and also the Kenfield Airport Station. So these were the only purposely built fire stations. All the others are either residential buildings that we are renting, or in the case of Portsmouth, it was the Portsmouth Health Center. And renovations was done to it to accommodate fire service. So this building is going to be the third purposely built fire station. And it will be the second largest fire station on the island. Melville Hall is still a little bigger than that at the Douglas Charles. So we are happy to have this in Grand Bay. When we moved out of what we had as the fire station in Grand Bay due to repairs that needed to be done, since then that's the building that is that small building that is directly below where this one is being constructed. We've never had we've moved to 3 different locations in Grand Bay from that time. And that was just before Tropical Storm Erica. So we've moved to 3 different locations. Presently, we are located in 2 of the apartment buildings below the Charles residence in Grand Bay. So that's where we are now. So we are elated to have this modern-day constructed fire station. And during the walkthrough, persons could get a feel of what it is like. Mm-hmm. And everybody were excited when the contractor showed the area for the sliding pool.
Yes, I was there myself. Yes,
and yes, so a sliding pool is generally a feature in fire station.
You used to have one in Roseau years ago. I haven't seen
years ago. That was years ago.
I remember that as a little boy growing up.
And Douglas Charles is actually constructed with an area. The fire station at Douglas Charles Airport constructed with an area for a sliding pool. But there's no sliding pole. The importance of the sliding pole? In fire stations that are 2 tiers, ground floor and first floor, normally the residential area is the first floor. Mm-hmm. So that means that's where officers would chill out and sleep. Mm-hmm. So whenever the alarm comes on, they have to get to their vehicle as quick as possible. And going down the stairs can pose some risk to the fire officers who just came up from sleeping. So running to the sliding pole, simply slide in less than a second, you are down in the engine room. And the engine room is where the truck or the ambulance parks. So in Grand Bay you would see it, and where it comes down is directly to the engine room from their sleeping accommodation, so they can go. So this fire station will have that. We got the commitment from the contractor. Yes, they're in the process already of sourcing that sliding pole to be erected by the time they're ready for it. And that building will have all operation activities on the ground floor. So persons coming to the fire station will come to the ground floor. They'll meet the guard, they'll meet the officers, and everything related to duties. Their training room, all that will be downstairs. And upstairs will be residence. That's where the fire officers will be sleeping. So we'll have female quarters, male quarters. And female quarters, I want to stress a little on that. Before 1999, the fire service did not have women in the service. So the first 2 fire officers, and I will say hats off to the family of Officer Frederica Lewis, who died a few years ago. Mm-hmm. She was one of the first fire officers. So she and Tora Charles Robinson were the first 2 female fire officers that came to the fire service in 1999. Presently, we have 23 females. 22 because one resigned. Mm-hmm. Females. And based on our recruitment policies, what we have done, we are moving in line with the government of Dominica's policies of having women inclusive. So our policy and the ministry policy moving forward is that every 5 fire officers that are recruited, 1 must be a female. and we are moving ahead of that. We are seeing females are moving up the rank. We currently have a female officer who is the first female officer appointed to the position of station officer. Station Officer Kathy Raymond. She's currently the officer in charge of the Portsmouth district. So at high level. So at all ranks, we have females. So we have females who are station officer. We have a female who is sub-station officer, the rank below. And we have female who are leading fire officers.
What is the complement of staff of the fire department?
Our establishment is currently 165.
Are you understaffed, overstaffed?
Well, we are not overstaffed because we need more. Yes. So we need more. Yes. And we have some vacancies that the ministry is attempting to fill in right now. So we are in that process at this moment, trying to fill in those vacancies so we can be up to our maximum according to our establishment. But we will always need staff. And the programs that we are putting, the expansion that we are planning to do with the fire service includes all that. So these are discussions that have already been started, and we will continue with those discussions as the ministry is concerned.
Tell me, how do you work in conjunction with the hospital as it relates to the use of ambulances? Because we know, that can be a very, very ticklish situation. Some people tell you, well, we don't have enough ambulances on island, but how do you work with the hospital department and various departments for the use of ambulances, and how many do you have at present?
And earlier on, you cited to that part about new equipment. And from a professional point of view, there will never be enough ambulances. From a professional point of view. And one of the plans of the fire service and the Ministry of National Security is to move into EMS. We operate now with just ambulance according to the laws of Dominica. And operation of an ambulance is provision of a bus with a stretcher and oxygen, and you can transport persons to a medical facility. So according to the laws, the cabinet paper, we operate an ambulance service. So what is required is basic first aid. But the service that the fire and ambulance service offers, or what we give, it's not just ambulance service. So we operate at a higher level than the law would actually have allowed us to.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, so we have persons trained at EMR and not just first aiders. As we speak, we have at least one certified EMT in the fire service. Certified EMT, documents which prove they have done the training and they are professionally certified as EMTs, emergency medical technician. So the EMR level is above the first aider, below the EMT level. And at EMT level, there's two different levels. And after that, now you have the paramedics. We have no paramedics in our service. And like I said earlier, we offer more than just the ambulance service, meaning we do not just go take somebody, give them a ride to the hospital or to the health center. We actually provide treatment and care to those persons. So we are trained now in patient care and assessment. So as EMRs, you have to be trained in patient care and assessment.
That's way above your level now.
Yes, it is. And as we speak, we have 2 fire officers. They source the training and they are now in St. Lucia doing their EMT certification. 2. So when they return to Dominica, we would have had at least 3 persons who are certified EMTs. There's some other persons who are doing the training and they are coming up the levels, and I know that soon we'll have plenty more EMTs. The fire service also, I've been discussing at ministry level the improvement in the service that we give, because we believe that we should be moving towards functioning as EMS. I believe we should, and this is better service. So presently, fire officers cannot do what we call break skin in the realm, and I'll explain what that is. Break skin would be to apply any intravenous, like IVs.
IVs in
we
your
cannot
system.
do that. So at this level, what we can do now is application of oxygen. And what we have trained ourselves to do now is treatment of trauma and resuscitation. So motor vehicle accidents, if you just operate an ambulance service, you would come to a motor vehicle incident and just take somebody and go. But because of the EMR work that we do in trauma and resuscitation, we can actually treat persons. So what we did last year, Carlisle, was to bring in medical professionals, doctors and nurses. So we had our trauma and resuscitation program training, and we invited them to come. And then they got a feel of how we do it. And believe me, to some of them it was like, you all do that? How do you all do that? And these were some of the questions that the doctors and the nurses were asking. But in the past, we've had instructors, for example, Dr. Thomas, who is a paramedic, certified paramedic. He did training with us in the past. And one of the things he always said while he's doing training was the work that a nurse or doctor does in the A&E is totally different from what the paramedic does. The nurse and the doctor does the work, standing in a room, moving, picking up equipment. The paramedic does it on a stone, on a riverbank, on a cliffside, on a moving ambulance.
To first stabilize you.
To stabilize and treat. Because one of the things as a paramedic you must do is treat whilst in motion. For example, if somebody is moving into cardiac arrest, a lot of persons call it heart attack.
Heart attack, yes.
You start resuscitation and chest compression. You don't stop. So we don't stop until we deliver that person to a medical facility, or what we call advanced medical care. That's when we stop. Hand over the person to the person's taking over at the health center or the hospital. So we call that advanced medical care, from the field to your advanced medical care, which is the health centers. And in the primary health care unit, we have the class A medical centers, health centers, which are more advanced than the lower class. And they can do their work there. And some of the doctors and nurses were, wow, childbirth, delivery. We can assist. I'll say we can assist because we have officers who are trained to deliver babies. But they will assist the midwives. Particularly if we are coming from the out district, where the midwives are to travel with the pregnant lady on the ambulance.
Yes, on the ambulance.
So the ambulance staff are good assistants now to that midwife. They would know what to do, so they would do everything on instructions of the midwife, and they are familiar with the work. So we are trained in that. There is a tool that we use in the fire service, particularly when it comes to
accidents.
Yes. And that tool, if somebody had a femoral fracture, and your femur is the largest bone in the body, and within that area you have the largest artery and vein. So whenever someone has a femoral fracture, it is expected that that person is going to have a heavy blood loss.
How do you deal with that? Because the fire officer would be called, the ambulance would be called, the fire department to do certain things.
There is one piece of equipment that is on the ambulance. It's called a traction splint. And if the person is conscious, we would tell them, expect pain. That traction splint, how we would know it's because a lot of femoral fractures, you don't see it breaking through the skin. But sometimes the bone is completely broken on the inside. So we could look at the length of the person's leg or how it is twisted and know that the person has a femoral fracture. And fire officers would use the traction splint to realign the bone, the femoral bone, the femur, each end to each other, to realign it. And that is done based on their training. and they can know when they realign it, but that is very painful. Persons who have experienced where we use the traction splint, they were screaming all the way. So what we had to do is take a wooden spoon, put in the mouth, and help them bite on it.
Yeah, so they will not swallow the tongue, they say that.
And you bite on it, and you eat the pain, but it's very painful when you're doing that. We have other things like some of our practice I could explain. We teach in the fire service in emergency medicals that a fall from the height of as low as 3 feet, somebody could die.
Just from there to there?
From 3 feet. So you're sitting at the top of this table, you fall, you could die. And this is the reason for that is because you've got in your body something called a spinal column, running from your neck, from your head, down to your coccyx. And movement in your spinal column can damage your spinal cord. And if that movement is where we call the C-spine, which is behind the neck here, we have vertebrae 1, 2, 3. Going, so,
yes.
So if the C-spine is dislodged from the atlas bone, then that's a broken neck. That person could die because of that. Their spinal cord could also be broken off during that fall. And somebody who falls from that height, you can observe them, and paralysis from the shoulder down can happen within 5 minutes.
So that means that quick intervention is very much necessary.
Quick intervention.
And as we speak about quick intervention, there's something that we've seen going on for a long time. When you receive a call, say an ambulance call, you're supposed to try to move as quickly as possible.
Yes.
But
yes.
sometimes you are confronted with traffic. It appears to me and to a lot of people that although you have this siren on, some people in Dominica seem not to be respecting the signal or the siren of the fire department. What sort of message would you want to send to people? Because that seems to be an area of concern also to you.
Back to the song again. Way of life. Traffic is something that you cannot get away from. We could spend eternity talking about when you hear the sirens. Allow the emergency vehicle to pass through. We could talk about that as much as we could. In our experience, persons, you're driving in traffic, your siren is blasting, as we say, and vehicles in front of you start to speed up because they look at it as an easy way to be out of the traffic. Speed up ahead of the fire truck or the ambulance. Some persons, the moment the ambulance or fire truck passes, they follow it. These are two bad practices. And the issue of vehicles respecting the sirens, I don't know. I had the opportunity of driving. I drive this red vehicle, which has siren. Anybody can see it. It's bright red. And siren is blasting and persons ahead of me were not even hearing the siren.
They're not hearing it or they're not adhering to it?
Well, they are not adhering to it, but in some cases they may say that they were not hearing it. Safety comes first. We talked about that. But modern day practice in human beings, Carlisle, at this moment you could be sitting next to somebody. You are speaking to them and they are not hearing you.
Yeah, that's true.
We have...
Their mind is blocked.
Yeah, and we have headphones. And if I would go to any one of the manufacturers of these nice headphones, they design it and they sell it as you block out the rest of the world. Persons literally drive with those things on. I've seen it. Some persons drive, their glasses are wound up, music playing. They don't even know what is happening around them. They're only focusing on in front.
On a bike too, people with a bike.
Yeah, motorcycle riders, they say they put it so they'll not be disturbed. I don't know. It's lifestyle. But to chauffeurs on the road, when I learned to drive back then, I was given a booklet, and one of the things that they explained to me when I went to buy it was I have to study the book, learn to drive. Your rear view mirrors are exactly what the name is. Rear view, to view the rear. Some persons don't. And these are some of the things that I realize the traffic department are talking about. They're trying to educate persons about controlling on the road. Traffic department is doing it. Persons just need to listen. And be aware. And first of all, think of it. When you are on the road, you are driving not just for you, for other persons. And you have to drive safe. So this, I would say, is one of the reasons why persons just don't respect the sirens. Like it's becoming almost obsolete. You have the siren, you blast it. Some persons don't. Majority of chauffeurs do. They do listen to it. They literally are driving and they see the ambulance coming. Look in the mirror. They see the ambulance coming. Before the ambulance arrive next to them, they indicate left to allow it to pass. Persons do that.
Can the ambulance or fire department break a no entry?
No.
Because but I want you to expound on that.
I'll say no. Mm-hmm. So we have the capabilities of going through a no entry under circumstances, if it is allowed by the traffic department. So we follow the route of traffic. What we can break. So I'm going to use a literal example. Mm-hmm. An emergency happens and it's on Valley Road. The police would stop the traffic at the end of Bath Road by Cash and Carry, mm-hmm. and sometimes tell us, go up this way. The police would do that. So we cannot break a no entry.
Because it means that you would be causing an accident yourself.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. The only traffic law that can be altered for our sake is that of the speed limit. But I will say that to fire officers and other citizens. The speed limit and the condition is the siren and the flashing lights, the beacon, must be on to break the speed limit. So if the speed limit on any road says 25 miles per hour, and the fire service is responding to an incident, it means the siren and the flashing lights, the beacon would be on. They can go at 30 miles an hour. So only the speed limit, and these are the conditions for breaking the speed limit.
Very interesting. You are listening to Disaster and You on DBS Radio. The Office of Disaster Management is committed to taking proactive and timely measures to prevent or reduce the impact of disasters on the Dominican people and economy through its efficient staff and collaborative efforts with national, regional, and international agencies. And as we are doing now, in national, from the national standpoint, the police, we have fire, health, welfare, forestry, solid waste, meteorology, YEAC, regional, SIDEMA in Barbados, SRC in Trinidad, international, IOM, USAID, IsraAid, WFP, UNDP, and IAEA. Of course, you must be aware that SIDEMA, Dominica, is participating or is a participant of those regional organizations where we follow the region's comprehensive disaster management and an initiative where we look at all hazards, all phases, mitigation, preparedness, response, etc. Mention must also be made of the IOM International Organization for Migration as a partner. You will also appreciate that in the face of increased human mobility and mitigation driven by adverse events, we must adopt strategies to safeguard displaced population. Very interesting.
Yes.
As we work together, the disaster office of Office of Disaster Management, and of course the fire department. The Just
Yes.
for Life. When you have an accident, there's an accident, and nowadays I see the besides the ambulance, the fire truck also comes, and sometimes you have to use all kind of equipment to try to get that person out safely and as quickly as possible to the nearest health facility.
Yes, and let me just, as you talk on that earlier, you asked about a new ambulance.
Yes.
We've heard it announced, and that ambulance is actually in state.
Oh, you have it already?
No, we don't have it yet. It is
Okay.
on the port.
Okay.
So we are in the process of clearing it off and get it into operation as soon as possible. And we have already announced that ambulance will be stationed at Roseau. Yes, so that's how we are moving with it now. And this ambulance was purchased by the state at a cost of approximately 301,000 EC dollars, and it's coming fully equipped. And for those persons who know the vehicle that I'm driving, the interior, the upholstery is orange. This ambulance also, the interior will be orange. So we chose the orange interior for this vehicle. So it is on the port right now being cleared, and we are doing all the process in clearing it and then to insure and license it and have it in operation as soon as possible. But you just talked about motor vehicle crash incident, and I'll seek to explain something which is part of our procedures. Our procedures says that we have to respond with all necessary vehicles that we have available at the time based on the incident. So yes, that includes a fire truck. The ambulance crew are responsible for sustaining life at a motor vehicle crash incident, and the firefighters crew are responsible for getting the person out. So we call it extrication. Now in the fire service realm, extrication is removing the wreck from the person. We do not train removing the person from the wreck, but we train in removing the wreck from the person. If you mishandle somebody at any incident, there's a possibility you might make them worse.
Yes.
You may make them worse. We've seen cases where persons actually pull the people out of the vehicle, and at the end they were paralyzed from neck down, and they say, well, it was better so. Yes, but we practice and we do it this way, remove the wreck. So this is why we caught. I will be honest, when responding to any motor vehicle crash incident, the fire officer does not have any accountability for maintaining the vehicle in a good condition. Our sole responsibility is to save the life that is trapped. So if it means cutting the vehicle in half to get to the person, that's what we would have to do. So that's what we do, it to preserve life and not to care for the vehicle. The vehicle owner will deal with the insurance. That's theirs. But our concern is ensuring that that person's life is not taken. So we try our best at all times. And it does not mean that because you do your best, that your best is going to account for the person's survival. But we try to give the victims as much chance of life as possible. So that's how we do. So we treat the person and extricate them. Extrication, like I explained, is removal of the wreck from the person.
And you have the necessary equipment to deal with that?
We use every piece of equipment that we can to. In some cases, we might be wanting. Sometimes you'll find that there's an equipment which you do not have. What you do it otherwise. Present day, modern day, we have, and I was showing you earlier on an equipment. It is called the Jaws of Life. Now, this one is a combination. Jaws of Life is one of the equipment that we use in rescues. In some cases, you cannot use it. And off my head, I could remember there was this incident at Kenfield East, and the Jaws of Life was of no sense. And what did they have to use? A small battery-operated disc cutter. And I do not want to blow my horns, but I showed you. And Carlisle, could you look at the price
Well,
of this
for
equipment?
our viewers, this is it there.
Yes.
And of course, it says the Dominica Fire and Rescue Service, Bath Road. And it says there, as it relates to the equipment cost a total of, I am seeing there, a total of $35,199,000 US dollars. That
So
total again, 35,199 US dollars. And that is the quotation that was given. And there's a delivery timeline estimated between 8 to 10 working weeks upon which that has to be delivered. And of course, there's a payment term, etc., that we're not going to get ourselves involved in. So,
Yes, so you see, these are some of the equipment that we are looking to replace. And I said replace because we've had.
Yeah.
And the equipment that we've had, they made the time. So actually, we have some that we're looking for, the generators, the generator for the equipment because they're hydraulic. And the maker said they don't make those generators anymore. So they recommended the upgraded version of that. So this is, and I'm saying this to say, these are not things that you go to a supermarket to buy.
correct.
So these are things that you submit budget, and every purchase is for the Dominica Fire and Ambulance Service is done according to budget allocation, budgetary allocation. So you look for that and then you submit to purchase, and you purchase incrementally if you have to. So we are doing that. We got some cutting tools, and that was in September of 2024. We got 3 pieces of cutting tools. So it's a big cutter, this cutter, that you can cut any metal, and this is doing wonders. It can do wonders. So we got 3 pieces one piece in September, and we got the other 2 sometime this year. I think it was in February. We got the other 2. We purchased those 2. So they are working well. And I even saw a video of a recent accident where the fire officer was using one.
Yeah.
So this cutter can do good. So we are getting those equipment. Now, those equipment makes rescue easier, but they are not always the answer for what you need at the time.
I want you to pause there quickly, because one of the things which sometimes happens is that sometimes even before the fire department reaches, people attempt to remove people who are trapped in vehicle and do worse to them. I want you to send a message. What sort of message you want to send them? They are not trained, but they find themselves there as if, well, they know it all. And by the time the fire department reaches, who are the trained people, most time damage has already been done.
I would not be able to direct people as to what to do at an incident before the fire service arrives. We train persons through the CERT and other community training in what you can do before the fire service arrives. But at the end of the day, you go to the scene and you meet persons who are involved in all kind of actions. If you are doing something to help somebody, help the person. If you cannot do it, it's better to look and give information to a rescuer and go on the advice of the rescuer. So a lot of time we go to scenes and persons fight us more than assist us. If fire officers are at a scene, help them by asking, what can I do to help? And then the fire officer will give you directives into how to do what he needs you to do. And you can assist that way. We may say it, do not touch persons at any motor vehicle incident. We may say that. But reality is, let's look at the response time. And some persons figure, I can do something, I will. But what we would like to advise persons is that if you're assisting somebody in any motor vehicle crash incident, ensure that what you are doing is to save them and not to make them worse. Because we've had incidents where persons literally were not injured. They were trapped, because not everybody who is trapped is injured. and then upon removing them, they got injured. And we're talking about spinal injury. So persons who are trapped, you have to assess and then know what to do and plan what to do. But sometimes we cannot, by the time we arrive, they say we moved the person already, but we did not even know what they did.
An hour has come and gone. We have to wrap up.
Yes.
Your final, I need to have you again because there's so much information that we have to deal with. So we have to be back here again sometime in the future. But your final comments as we wrap up, since we run out of time, to the Dominican public, what would you want to say to them, re-disaster mitigation as it relates to storms, etc., traffic accidents, and those things?
Disasters are real. And one of the things that exists with every disaster that happens, there's risk and there's hazards. There's hazards, and those hazards pose different risks. What we would want persons to do is to do a hazard assessment at their homes. Or whenever you are going anywhere, do a hazard assessment and see what are the risks associated with those things. These days we have telephones on the internet. Pick out what are the hazards riding in a motor vehicle. Hazards, hurricane is coming, flooding. What are the risks associated to those hazards? And start to take actions to mitigate against those risks. That's what I would advise persons.
And that's how we take a wrap on yet another program on disaster. And you right here on DBS Radio. My guest was Acting Chief Fire Officer Wayne Later. Join me next week right here, the same station from 9:30 to 10:30 on behalf of each and every one of us from the Office of Disaster Management. And of course, those of you listening, thanks for listening. I'm Carlisle JnoBaptiste saying goodbye.
Dominican lifestyle for man, woman, and child. For when disaster strikes, yeah. For when disaster strikes, oh, yeah. I begin you live a preview. Dominican lifestyle for man, woman, and child.